Okay, thank you, Dustin. So greetings, everyone. This is the State Building Code Council, our first meeting of our IEBC, our Building Code TAG, our Technical Advisory Group. I'm Todd Byruther. I'm a council member representing manufacturing suppliers and installers of building products. And I'd like to briefly let Roger introduce himself as our or vice chair of the committee.
Yes, I am Roger Herringa. I am a State Building Code Council member, and I represent the structural engineering community on the State Building Code Council. So, and I think that's enough, I think.
Okay. And I'm going to hand over in just a second to Dustin Kerb on the State Building Code Council staff, but I'll briefly welcome everyone. This is as our first meeting. There are some of you that have served on these technical advisory groups before, and some of you new. So thank you for your willingness to serve. Today we are, as a kickoff, we're going to let Dustin lead us through the process as kind of initiation, what the tasks in front of us are, the timeline, so forth. But if there's any questions along the way, just please interrupt us. We run these technical advisory groups as very open meetings. So while we have stakeholders and subject matter experts is probably a better term, that are going to help us through this process, we are an advisory group to the State Building Code Council. So our task is to do the hard work, the rule, to establish the rulemaking that we are advising the council on adopting. But unlike the code council meetings, we will run it as a formal meeting, but we want the public to engage. So everyone is open to raise their hands and participate in these meetings. When we get to official action by the technical advisory group, then there are dedicated voting members. But again, we want to run this as an open meeting. So, Dustin, I think that's enough. So, unless there are any questions from the public or from the group members, I'll hand it over to Dustin. Sorry, thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Before we get rolling in earnest, I did want to do a quick roll call for the building code tag, and I'll go ahead and do that for you now. So we have Chair Todd Byruther is here. We have our alternate Roger, but he wouldn't be considered for the roll call and quorum purposes. So for our architect seat, I'm looking if Joe Mayo is in the house.
Present.
Awesome. For building officials, Tim Woodard. Is the alternate Steve Belzak present?
I am present. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. For the fire services representatives, we have a vacant seat for that at the moment. We are hoping to get that filled. For cities and counties, Hoyt Jeter. Not hearing anything on that one. Is the alternate Sean Karlstrom here? Thank you. For affordable housing, we have a vacancy there as well. Moving on to general contractor, William Mybush. Okay. And then manufacturer supplier, we have vacant. For structural engineers, we have Joshua Mergens.
Here.
For a persons with disability or an accessibility expert, we're vacant. For building owner / property manager, we're vacant. Next, we have the general public, Michael Barth.
I am here.
Thank you. For specialty contractor, we have a vacancy. Moving on to state enforcement agencies, Paul Clark.
Here.
Thank you. And for fire protection engineer, I'm looking for Andy Leonto.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have maybe more than we were expecting based on our introductory meeting last week. We've got some folks at the ICC meetings down in Florida participating on the national level, and we will welcome them back once they are finished up there. And so moving on with the purpose of today's meeting is to let you guys know what our timeline for the first task that we have in hand is and what that task is. So we are attempting to get the existing amendment report and the significant changes report prepared by the May 24th council meeting so that we can approve those reports. And then once those are approved, we would open the submission period for proposals and really begin the tag work in earnest, although this is a big task right here in itself. State Building Code Council staff has been working on these reports and has not made it very far on the building code or the fire code. And so the general purpose of this meeting is to call all hands to divvy up these chapters and put some input on the existing amendments and look at any of the significant changes that we have and put together some comments and stuff for that. That way we can have some subsequent tag meetings to discuss those and approve those reports and recommend them to the council. Does anybody have questions so far before I run on any further? Okay. So I see no hands. So like I said, the May 24th council meeting is really our hard deadline for getting the reports prepared and completed and recommended to the council. We need some time before that to work as a tag to approve those reports and recommend them to the council. So in my accounting of the time, we have just over a month until that meeting date hits us, and I was thinking that it would be nice to have at least 2 if not 4 or more tag meetings to review all these chapters in to say that we've looked at them with detail and that we are actually recommending all the recommendations that we have here instead of rushing through them and then just preparing a report and pushing it to the council. So looking at the International Building Code and the existing building code, we've got a large portion of those publications have state amendments to them. As I'm looking at it, in the building code, there's only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chapters that don't have any state amendments. And I'm gonna ask that we all look at all the chapters because we're looking at the changes across the whole code book as well. And within the IEBC, every chapter has a little bit of state amendment in there. I think that book is a little bit less of a heavy task to complete on this one. And at this point, I'm going to share one of the documents that we've been working on, which is a Word document where we are trying to look at the significant changes, which are indicated in blue, and also add in our state amendments, which on this document will be shown in red. And then we also want to make some recommendation on whether or not the state amendment, the existing amendments should remain. We are looking to see if the model code addresses state amendments. So we're trying to do some cleanup on there because we're fond of bringing in requirements from the next code cycle in so that we can be a progressive state and have the most up-to-date codes for our citizens. So some of the state amendments are included in model code language as of today, and we don't necessarily need them unless there's a specific need for that. So let me pull up a document here, and I'm not clicking my share screen button. I'm sorry, 1 second. All right. So this here is the International Building Code. This is just chapter 1. Stoyan Bumbalov, our managing director, has put in work on this one. And you'll notice as we get down in here, he's got some stuff here in red that is pretty much editorial in the beginning of this chapter and is going to be a state amendment. So we're looking for state amendments to be shown in red. online with ICC, and then they're using their blue color to show their changes in the document. And you'll notice here below this 101.1, he's got his rationale on why this amendment is necessary. And as we go through and look at what he's got here, he's got anything in red should have a rationale beside it. I guess all these the Washington State ones are pretty obvious, and he hasn't included that one there. And as we scroll through, each one of these has just a rationale. And what we're asking everybody to do is to work on this document and a spreadsheet that we have, and enter in the code section where we see a change, and make some comments on that, whether or not the amendment is necessary to remain. Let's see. I think I'm going to change my share a little bit so I can just flip between my my windows that I have open. One moment.
Hey, Dustin, while you're
Okay.
doing that, I just want to ask if any of the members have any questions about that. It wasn't obvious to me at first what we do in this little first sprint, but it became very clear to me once I dug in, understanding that, especially in cases where we have Washington amendments that might be replaced by the new model code, or that we're 3 years ahead of time. That's a good example of something where we found a conflict. We just needed to clean up the Washington amendments. So are there any questions on that? I think it helps as Dustin, you keep going through it. So thank you.
Yeah. Here we got Roger. You got your hand up.
Yeah, I just would like procedurally, so Dustin, you are going to send us this document, or we'll have access to this document?
Yes. So I'll follow up after you finish up. Sorry.
Yeah, and then the intent of this is everything of chapter 1 of the code. And you all have gone through and made your comments, and we are expected to review your comments, or are we also expected to go through and look at the model code and see if we, try to understand the new changes?
So I would say yes to both of those. So for chapter 1, this one is done for our reports, and we won't be disseminating this particular document. So what we're looking to do is not necessarily have redundancies in this system just yet. So on the chapters that we have completed before this meeting, but the staff completed, we're going to consider those complete. We will be deliberating on those at the meetings before we present the report to the council. So the ask here is to work on chapters that we do not have completed, and get those together and collaborated. And so as far as this document you see here, the documents that will go out will look just like this, except for they won't have the red writing in them or any of the gray highlighted rationales in there.
Okay.
And yes, sir.
Well, then my follow-up, so I understand that. My follow-up is, will we have access to will we be referred to where the state amendments are? I'm wondering what I should work with is, should I download the new IBC? What will you be providing, and what will we be going through, just from a, document perspective?
Gotcha. So as we decide which documents are going to be worked on by who, I was going to touch on the dissemination of chapters. We're not allowed to send out the entire code document that you see here. So the staff has chopped this up. You're going to get if you sign up for chapter 1 through 5, you're going to get 5 documents, each containing just the one chapter in there. And that will be worked on and then sent back. And so the spreadsheet that we're looking to develop here will be piecemealed as well. So you'll get a spreadsheet that'll pretty much come out blank, and we'll be filling that in with just, it's not going to take a lot of time. If you do the work on the Word document, the work on the spreadsheet will be mainly just kind of copy pasting some of the comments you put in there. The reason we're working on them both in conjunction is these will eventually be the documents we send to ICC to create the Washington publication. So we want to get the Word document taken care of, and also get these reports that are going to not necessarily have the full code text in them prepared to present to the council. So we've got, as far as finding out where the state amendments are, there's a couple different resources, but my favorite one by far is looking at the WAC language on the Washington State Register website. And as I go through there, they have different WAC numbers for different specific chapters within the building code. And as we go through that, I guess I can show those side by side here as we move through this, and kind of show what Stoyan's got going here versus what we have on the WAC publication. Another resource is also the ICC website for the 2021 codes. Both the building code and existing building code for Washington for 2021 are published there. And we're not providing any of the codes online premium memberships for everybody, so you won't have the ability to copy paste those. The copy paste feature would be available on the WAC website, where we publish those with the state of Washington, and should be the best way to get the language in there. And as far as, like, say, in this 101.4.6, you'll notice there's some strike through language there, the International Energy Conservation Code. It would be nice to have, instead of striking the whole section and then copy and pasting the whole WAC section in there, what we're asking for is that the changes from the model code be shown. So by that, what was in here before Stoyan worked on this was all black text, and the International Conservation Code was changed to red and strike through, and the Washington State Energy Code, commercial yada yada, was added in. And that way, when a code reader reads this in the end product, they will be able to see what the state amendment actually is. We haven't finalized whether or not the strike through language will be included in the final document. My personal like is to be able to see that, because it kind of clarifies what the state has been doing. So moving, so I'm gonna go to our WAC page. I have it here. Are you guys seeing my guest list on the screen by chance? I'm just curious. Okay, so I have some Zoom controls open on my page as well, and it's cluttering up my screen. I don't want it to clutter y'all's screen. So we were looking at chapter 1 in the document that we are viewing for presentation purposes today. And if we come over here to our WAC website, which is on the ledge.wa.gov site, when we disseminate all this stuff, I'll give some links in the emails so that everybody can have those if you don't know where these are, so you don't have to go searching for them. So looking at these WAC numbers, 5150 is the WAC that holds the building code and the international building, or the existing building code, I'm sorry. And the sections that are 001 through 009, these are preface text, so we're not concerned with those ones. And so looking at what we have in the WAC, section 107, section 108, and section 110, well, 110 no longer is listed as reserved, but these sections have state amendments. So there's not a whole lot within chapter 1 that we would have to be concerned with for existing amendments. So if I click onto the 107, on this website, no longer are we seeing amendments for 2018. We're only seeing the current 2021 amendments. And for chapter 107, there's only 2 in there. And these amendments are shown as the full text of the section. And so if you're going through trying to compare what's going on with our amendment versus the model code, you have to read word by word and compare and contrast for that one. And so we're trying to, for this document, show the changes so that anybody reading and analyzing this can see where the changes lie. So getting back to our Word document, you'll notice that these changes here are not in section 107 and are just showing kind of editorial changes that make this a Washington code. So I'm going to scroll down to section 107 now. The stuff here in blue is model code changes. We got 107, and there's 107.2 is our first state amendment that should be included in this document. And you'll see here we have keep the existing amendment. And Stoyan, you're online. I guess I'm not 100% on what your use of the colors is. It red is new amendments and green is the existing amendments?
So I was trying to use, because the model code uses red at some time. So I was trying to use a green for the existing amendments and a red for the new amendments. That most of these amendments are editorial. You know, again, Dustin, you mentioned that, like changing the international building code with the Washington State building code or some other codes that are not adopted. And the colors are not really considered, you know, ADA compliant, but we couldn't figure out any other way of showing the changes. So in the working document, we'll be using the colors, but you know, the that's a good topic for discussion for the technical advisory group. So you're seeing too many colors here, but you guys can agree on, you know, how you can introduce this document and how you can work on the document. I was just trying to, for staff purposes, I was just trying to show the different options, but how you will go with it, it's up to you.
Gotcha. And just another quick question, for ICC, some people might be asking why we're not doing the track changes on this document. And that's because ICC has asked that we don't submit one with track changes?
We are meeting with ICC folks on Thursday, which is, you know, the day after tomorrow. So we will discuss this with them. As far as I remember, they didn't like the track changes because of, you know, I don't know, some formatting issues, but we'll figure this out.
Okay. So moving forward, I guess showing our changes here with the colors, we could today decide on a color scheme or some other color scheme to do that and show our changes consistently. I personally would like to move forward with what Stoyan's got, and I guess proposed state amendments in red, existing state amendments in green, and model code changes in blue, and the rest would be black text. Does anybody have an objection to using that kind of format on that? Okay, seeing no hands so far. So as we go down this list, I'll go back to our WAC here. Our next amendment was in 1072.9. And I'm gonna 1072.9 indicated there, 2.9. So we have this whole section is a state amendment, and you'll notice Stoyan's recommendation is to keep the existing amendment without making modification. You know, that doesn't mean a proposal can't come in on this at a later date and make some changes, but this is just to show significant changes and existing amendments and get it moving. And so I guess with that, you know, we come down to the ask of the State Building Code Council of the TAG is we need some volunteers to work this document and volunteer. So with what we have going right now, I believe that this IBC is done by Stoyan up to chapter 3 is complete. And he's in the middle of chapter 4, but that one's not completed. And I would start the bidding for volunteer work on chapter 5.
Dustin, do you have a Do you have an appendix? I don't have it open in front of me and I could probably do that, but just what chapters are what sections? Because
I got you. So you're looking for like a table of contents to see.
yeah,
Like, I assume you would be interested in like a structural engineer's portion of this code.
yeah, so I know that there are, and I'd have to get it out, but there are structural sections, and I know there's one or two other structural engineers here, and I think we should work together to work on those, just because we probably have a lot of knowledge about those anyway. So,
Gotcha. So I don't have one open, but I will get one open real quick.
And I was going to reinforce something Roger just said is one, I've actually, once I got into this process, I learned a lot. So it was valuable to go through this process, and I learned things about the codes I thought I knew and didn't know, but especially the Washington code. But do it in groups. Grab a couple of people to tackle some of these. Somebody might do most of the heavy lifting, but it's a good way to be very comfortable about it and learn about it.
So, and within each chapter, some chapters have more state amendments, some don't, and then some chapters have more model code changes. I know one of the things that was Sandbag and Stoyan is there are a lot of model code changes within this particular code text this season. And so going through those and thinking about them and getting ready to make some comments on it was slowing down with the other business that the staff has going on at the moment. So
Listen, if sorry to cut you off, apologize if I can add that. So for the 2021 code, we had the significant changes from ICC. They published this book, and now we don't have it. It's not published yet. We have the history. It's a huge Word document, but the history of the proposals, but it's too slow to work with it because it's a huge document. It's moving so slow, and you gotta check different pages. Sometimes the proposal is at the beginning of the document and the proposal was modified, and there is another proposal at the end of the document. So that takes a lot of time. But many of these proposals, after I further researched it, many of these proposals are just editorial. So for the TAC members, if you folks have time, you can go one by one and address every single one. If you feel like it's editorial, just mark it as editorial and continue with proposals that seem like a big of a deal. So this is why the report is titled Significant Changes Report. So the editorial changes, you can just keep them.
It's a good distinction story, and I'll give an example. If someone wants to, I'm happy to help on chapter 5, but on chapter 6, if someone wants to jump into that because they want to start to bring in the 2024 changes for type 4B construction, for example, that's one that we adopted in the 2021 Washington amendments, and that's one where they'll have to kind of bring resolution together. The way we adopted it might be a little different than what was officially adopted in the model code, and we have to make a recommendation on how to reconcile that.
This is why we decided to go with one document only. So in the Word document, you have both the significant changes and the state amendments, because Todd, you're right. Many of those will overlap.
yes. Would it help if we kind of run through the chapters and identify so we are, I guess maybe not everybody knows, but Todd mentioned it, we're doing group one, or not group one, I'm sorry, the structural and non-structural portion of these codes in group one. Unlike in the 2021 cycle, we had structural broken out into the that was just group one, if I'm correct, if I recall correctly. And then in group two, they had the non-structural portions taken care of. So it's a little bit more work within one group. But just the way the House of Cards has fallen, we're needing to get them both into the first group here on this code cycle. So I guess, would it help if we went through and maybe identified the structural sections versus the non-structural sections, And would that be a good jumping off place, or should we go in chapter number, and we can work off the table of contents here and kind of look at it, and we're just looking for volunteers to take this, and you know, I'm looking to take several chapters as well, and so I guess I leave it open for comment at the moment. Does anybody have anything on that?
Dustin, what I think that's a good question. What I would recommend is let's start with kind of areas of interest. So Roger, you mentioned, you know, areas of interest structure. Let's kind of identify that and figure out who's interested in participating in chapter 23 and 16. You know, for example, just as a material and the wood chapter for, I just gave an example. That's my bias. In chapter 16, and let's establish who wants to participate in that. And then I would say chapter 6 and 5 are pretty important too, to find key subject matter experts for.
Yeah, and I would be willing to volunteer for like 16 through 23, but I don't want to do them all by myself either. So those are what I would consider the primary structural sections. So I will participate in those, but I don't want to take them all on my own.
Roger, my name's Josh Mergens. I'm on here for structural as well, and I'm happy to help you with a lot of those chapters. I was just kind of waiting till those chapters came around where my expertise is more beneficial.
And well, I want to mention one other thing, that we have more than just our tag here today, and so members of the public and alternates, everybody's welcome to assist in these works here. There's no rules that preclude people who aren't necessarily tag members from helping if that is the wish for them to do so. So I just want to open that up to members of or people who are not members of the tag, I'm sorry. And that way we can maximize the resource allotment. So I have some tentative notes here. Todd, you were kind of saying 5 and 6, and Roger and Josh, I got you for, these are just rough. I'm not putting your name on these, but for 16 through 23, is there more structural chapters that we might want to touch on, or we want to kind of chunk them together at 16 through 23 and touch base on some others a little bit later?
Chapters 24 and 25 were in the structural portion last year, last code cycle.
Yeah. They're kind of secondary structures, glass and glazing, and what, gypsum board products. Yeah. So I mean, for the first go through, I was hoping somebody else could take those. You know, we would focus on the primary structural sections.
Yeah. In 24 and 25, we don't have that many. I mean, it's just minor editorial modifications most likely, but the heavy lifting is, you know, between 16 and 23.
I have a question, Dustin, and I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it, but we, as far as communicating, Joshua and I, about how we review these, it is acceptable for us. I just want to have a conversation about the public meeting questions. If there are 2 or 3 of us that want to work together on a section or two, a chapter or 2 or 3, it's fine for us to get on, and this is my understanding, so if I'm incorrect, please correct me. It's fine for us to set up our own Zoom call, and like if we wanted to go through, if Joshua and I wanted to go through chapter 16 kind of together, so we understood how we're going to do it, and then we would split up the other chapters or something. Those types of meetings are acceptable and not precluded by the Open Meetings Act. However, once we come together with the full meeting like this, yes, it's an open meeting and all of the information is presented. Is that correct?
That is my understanding as well. The rule would be that we don't establish a quorum at any of these meetings outside of the, you know, if we're being cognizant of the Open Public Meetings Act, that is the quorum that's going to trigger the issue. So as long as we stay below six, I believe.
So I would say if there are 2 or 3 of us, you're fine. If you're gonna start getting a larger group, maybe talk with Stoyan or Todd or Dustin and just making sure that we're okay there. And then the other question is just access. Contact information of individuals and how are we gonna disseminate that so that we can
So-
reach out and
As we, after the conclusion of this meeting, it is the plan to take any chapters that are going to be assigned out and deliver those. Along with those chapters, you're going to get a contact list. It's not going to be just for this tag. You'll get all the tag contact information, and that, I was going to touch base a little bit more on if you needed to make a communication to the whole tag, it is appropriate to send it to staff, and then the staff can disseminate it, and we don't have to worry about the quorum issues.
Yeah, and just to reinforce that, if the number is, Dustin, is 6, that establishes quorum, then keep the meetings and the email threads, the chains below 6. Now, just to be clear to everyone, this is not controversial work. we are doing nuts and bolts, work to present to the full committee. All of it, everything will be daylit. So this is establishing what is there in order to present to the group.
Yes.
And we have a council meeting on Friday, and Dirk will be there, our Assistant Attorney General, so we can touch base with him, so he may be able to provide some guidance how to work with this thing. I remember for 2021, we had work groups, different tags and different chapters. If there were some complicated issues that TAC members needed to work on, but I also know that there is a lawsuit with allegations that we didn't meet the Open Public Meetings Act and other things. So it's good if we can get some legal advice on that.
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay, back to nuts and bolts. I could use some help on 5 and 6, especially from an architect friend and friends. I think that's important. And then that also sets up, we're not doing the proposal work, we're not doing the single stair stuff yet, but I want that team then to also, join in as we start to navigate that. So these are the critical chapters on that. And then I would ask, who would like to lead the charge on, if you can scroll down, please, Dustin, on chapter 7, that's a critical one. And I think probably some of our members that are at the ICC meetings right now, from and they're going to WABA, will be able to weigh in heavily on chapter 7. But I don't think like Sean or others are here, right? On the fire
and
side.
our fire folks aren't here at the moment, and we also I've communicated with Roger and Todd. We have some more applications for seats to fill, and I believe we're touching base on that at the council meeting this Friday,
Okay.
to potentially make that an official appointment for them.
Yes, this is Brett Conway on the energy tag, and I can support. I'm an architect, and I can help on 5 and 6 and 10 and 11.
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah, this is Joe, the architect. Help out on definitely 6 and 5, and then other chapters as needed.
Alrighty.
Mike
Yes,
Barth.
yes.
Oh, sorry, somebody else.
Go ahead, Michael.
I'll do some work on 7. I don't know if I want to take responsibility for everything in 7, but I'll definitely work on it.
Michael, we can probably team up on chapter 7 then. I can also take chapter 8 and 9. And let's see, chapter 30 and 31.
30 and 31.
Yes.
Dustin, I can support 32. Is Brett Conway?
So chapter 30 as well, or chapter 32?
Just 32.
Okay, gotcha.
And then Dustin, on chapter 16, we had the major amendments to the seismic provisions. I have full confidence Roger and team can deal with that integration. And then we have the amendments to the tsunami code, but I don't think we're probably touching anything that probably is just rolling over. But if we need to, let us know if we need to, on chapter 16, we need to reach out to any of the tsunami experts that were part of that development.
Currently, we don't have anything for the tsunami loads, but we have a big proposal for the structural provisions. But we're not there yet. We're not in the proposals yet.
So it looks like we've got up to chapter 12. We've got some volunteers for all of those chapters. So we'll scroll down. Does anybody have, I guess, is kind of architectural or energy code type stuff for chapter 12 interior environment and chapter 13 energy efficiency? Does anybody want to step into those?
I am Chat Fertilizer. I can assist with 12 and 13. Also an architect alternate.
Gotcha. 12 and 13.
If-
And
If someone else is need for 12, I can help with 12 too. This is Joe.
Joe, I'll be happy to work with you.
Great.
all right.
Dustin, how about definitions? I don't mean to jump around too much, but that's an important one. Or I mean, I'm sorry, references, chapter 30, what?
Oh, 35?
35.
Yeah, we can scroll down to that. 5 reference standards. It's a whole lot on the table of contents, but it's a whole lot more in the actual book. And as we do this, as if there's room, or I guess not room, if there's chapters left out, hopefully they're just the little work chapters that, as we do the bulk of this work, we can maybe circle back and touch base on some of those and get them taken care of. But if we don't have anybody, that work will kind of fall to staff to finish. And right now that's me on this one.
Well, and maybe that's a good point, Dustin, is while everyone's going through the chapters, kind of flag when new reference standards are in the new code, right? And then we can make sure that they'll all roll into chapter 35, but that's a good way for the subject matter experts to also flag them.
Yes. All right. So we got some stuff. Do we have anybody who wanted to maybe step up for 35 for reference standards?
Dustin, I was going to say I have an interest in it, but I kind of want to focus my efforts on the structural first. I don't want to commit to another one. So hopefully somebody else can take the lead on it.
Gotcha.
This is
how
Josh
about-
Mergens. I would be happy to help with 35. Though I may not be able to take as many on the structural, but it sounds like we got a couple folks there. So if somebody needs to take 35, I'm happy to take 35.
Okay. And
Dustin, this is Brett Conway. I misspoke. I volunteered for 32. If you could strike that.
okay.
I accidentally jumped into the fire code.
No worries. Got your name stricken from that one. All right, so I'm gonna scroll back up to chapter 14. I believe this one is kind of energy code related. Well, no, I'm sorry on that one. This is just exterior walls. I'd be happy to put my name on this one if anybody else doesn't want to step up for that one. Okay. All right, 15 roof assemblies and rooftop structures. would it help if I went and looked at what we have for state amendments in these chapters as we talk about them? All right, well, I'll pop over to chapter 15. We'll just look at what we have in there. Well, work with me. There is no state amendments in chapter 15, so I'm gonna go ahead and volunteer for that one as well. And this one will just be looking at any changes that are within that chapter and checking it out. And so then when it brings us to 16 through 23, we've got Roger and Josh for those. And that takes us to chapter 24. We have reserved in 2400. We've got a couple in here. There's not much for chapter 24 as far as state amendments. Does anybody want to volunteer for the chapter 24?
I'll take 20. I'll take 24. I'm new to the process. It'll help me get involved in it.
Steve Belzak?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I was going to say your Zoom name. It looks like just your first initial.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I got you in there. Chapter 25, no state amendments in there. And so to be honest, I haven't flipped through to see how much blues in any of these chapters. Let's see, going back to the table of contents. 25 is for gypsum panel products. We were saying this one kind of falls into the structural category a little bit, but I think that as far as the folks who are taking structural at the moment, they got plenty on the plate already. Is anybody into chapter 25? Since there's no state amendments, I will volunteer myself for that one. And all right. Stoyan, I have a quick question for you as far as the International Existing Building Code goes. On the surface of it, it looks like that is kind of tagged on with the building code. I haven't had a chance to look at exactly how many amendments we have within there. We have sections for all of those chapters. In your opinion, would you consider the existing building code a big lift for this group by the 25th?
It's not a big lift, but it's a lift.
Gotcha.
So, like weightlifting, depends how much weight we can handle.
Yeah. So here is maybe my idea is to get the building code assigned out and maybe circle back and reassign out on the existing building code as maybe things start getting finished up on the building code. Does that sound like a plan that might work for everybody? I don't want to overload everybody and have people stressed out, but like Soyan said, it's a lift, and so far we haven't touched it yet, and we're not, I guess, not quite there yet. But I just wanted to maybe think about it as a strategy coming back to it after we do a little bit in the building code first.
I think it's fair because I think we have a lot of new members that will learn the process here. So,
and we will have 5 or 6 folks that are currently in Florida or wherever is the ICC event. So I'm sure they will be crying for more work so they can handle some chapters.
Gotcha. So then I guess we'll move forward with what we've got going right now, and maybe come back to the IEBC in next week or the week after, and we can chat about that. Does that sound good, Todd?
Yep, like that plan. Thank you.
So that brings us to chapter 26. Plastic. It's killing all the sea turtles. doesn't look like there's a whole lot going on there that we have for amendments. Let's see, and it's all reserved in the WAC, so we're looking at model code changes in that one, so that one's not a huge push. 27 is electrical. Since this will be my first code cycle working with the entire code, I've done some rulemaking since I've been with the State Building Code Council, but the electrical is, regulated by L&I. Stoyan, I don't think we have amendments in chapter 27. Is this something we have emergency and standby power systems?
I think in 27, just give me a few seconds to double check. I think we hit a reference or something, but you can skip it and it will give me a couple of minutes to double check.
Okay, we'll skip 27.
Dustin, just a real quick though, is that to memory? That's where we have the PV ready, right?
The EV ready stuff.
No, not the EV, the photovoltaic, the roof is it. And maybe I'm just getting confused from our previous work, but
so we're talking about rooftop solar stuff. I don't believe it's in chapter 27. You're gonna get me lying if I start talking more about it.
oh, it's okay. And I don't mean to gonna go through it right here. I just meant to give people kind of context. That's the kind of stuff to look for.
Yeah. So I mean, we could take a quick look at what the amendment is in that section that we've got.
We have only one amendment in 27. It's in 2702, emergency and standby power systems. So it's a simple amendment. There are minor changes to the model code as well, but not big of a deal.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna come back to 27. We passed over 26. I don't want to go there. For plastics. I'll put my name on 25, 26, and 27. I think that'll work for now. And then do we have any folks who like mechanical here in the room? I don't have my guest list up anymore. Seeing no hands, we'll move forward from mechanical section to plumbing systems. We don't have a whole lot going on in there.
29, no, 29 is a big of a deal. 29 has a lot.
Big one.
And we put a lot of work in 2021, but there were many folks that didn't like the outcome, so this table with the plumbing fixtures may need some additional work. So 29 will be difficult.
Okay. Will it be difficult with the proposals or with this existing amendments?
I would say with the existing amendments.
Okay.
There were some ideas for 2021 that the council reevaluates the new tables in the model code and merges the existing amendments within the new tables. We were expecting proposals, but nobody submitted anything. So the TAC recommendation was, we will submit proposals and it needs work, but there weren't any proposals. So the emergency staff needed to adjust some language. So that one will definitely will need work. I don't want to speak about proposals because we don't know yet, but the existing amendments and the new model code changes may need some evaluation.
Excuse me. Okay. Do we have anybody who wants to take on the plumbing section for these reports at all? And I guess I would also point out that, like Stoyan said, we got some folks who aren't here, who are in Florida, and we can circle back and maybe divvy out the rest of the building code at that time. It seems like we've got the bulk of it, covered with at least some folks willing to start it. And let's see, chapter 30. Let me get back to the table of contents. Elevators and conveyances. And then 31 we have Andy, and 32 we have Andy as well. I believe, is that everybody's
So that's
recollection?
yeah, Dustin, I signed up for chapter 30 and 31, but I know 31 is big. So if anybody else wants to take on some of 31 as well, that would be good.
You said 30 and 31, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I had to put your name on the wrong line on my note sheet here, so I'm glad we touched base on it again.
31 has a big state amendment in section 3116.
And then did we have somebody for chapter 32, or my notes, I don't have anybody on the line there for the moment. Encroachments. Okay. Does anybody else want to step up to help Andy with chapter 31 or 30? All right, seeing no volunteers, we're gonna move on to 33. We got safeguards during construction. Looking back at what we got going on here, there's a fire watch amendment in chapter 33. Not a whole lot. Anybody up for chapter 33? Seeing no hands. We got 34. Let me skip back over to the table of contents. It's a reserve chapter, so we don't have to worry about it. And then 35, we've got Josh. And then I kind of have the appendices all listed as kind of one group. I know that's a big ask on that one. As far as our amendments in these sections, we have Appendix P with an amendment in it. And then it's, a little bit bigger than some of the other ones we've looked at here today. Anybody want to look at Appendix P for us? All right.
Steve Belzak here. I can try that one.
Okay.
And Dustin, this is Brett Conway. You can put me next to 29 plumbing.
Okay. All right. I think we've gone through all the chapters and have some volunteers for most of them. Does it sound like we kind of have a jumping off point for some work to get started? And I guess what I would tell everybody to expect is tomorrow morning to be looking for an email from the State Building Code Council that's going to have the chapters that we have your names next to. It's going to have contact information, and you're also going to get a spreadsheet. And I guess that's one thing I haven't touched on yet is the spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet, this is just a blank one, and this is the existing amendments review spreadsheet. And then also down here, we have another tab for significant changes. They have mostly the same information in there, except for the significant, and this shouldn't say IEBC. We'll double check those and make sure it's coming out for you without the title that you don't need there. But the main difference is, does this amendment add cost to building? And that's going to be kind of the main consideration for the the significant changes, and whether or not we are friendly towards those. Joshua.
I was just curious, with the increase in cost, would the definition be similar to a significant change, or as in a significant increase in cost, or hypothetically, if you have to use more nails in your sheathing, is that considered an increase in cost because there is an actualized increase, though maybe minuscule?
I would say a significant increase is the more important factor to consider, but
Okay.
but information on, little increases like, additional materials wouldn't be bad information to include in the considerations for this. So I'd say if you are cognizant of both, then let's put some notes in there for both of those types of cost increases.
Thank you, sir.
We have
You're welcome.
two important questions for the significant changes. So the first one is the cost. Yes or no? Is there any cost? So you can add a comment, or you can add more information if you have the information, or you can obtain the information from the ICC website. Or if you can't, we will do that on a later time. But also it's important, the recommendation, whether or not the council needs to follow up on that and think about amending the model code for different purposes. For example, the model code modification may conflict with existing state law or state regulation, or maybe too expensive to be included in Washington State, whatever the reason is. So these are the important parts, the cost. But if you say there is a cost associated with it, then it doesn't necessarily mean you will suggest the repeal of this amendment, of this modification. So it's just a evaluation what this modification brings for the state of Washington, and are there any issues adopting this modification?
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
All righty. So with that, I think that kind of brings us to the end of our planned presentation here, and I think we got some good volunteer work proposed, and I'm excited to move forward. I want to make sure that everybody here, you'll get staff contacts as well if you're having questions about working with the spreadsheets or with the Word documents. You can always reach out to us, and we will be happy to work with you towards resolving any issues you may uncover. Another thing on the Word document, the formatting can potentially be a little tricky. I wouldn't focus on getting the formatting perfect. So if we can get the stuff in there in line where it's supposed to go, don't worry so much about the indentations and all of that. I've found that when we're working with these documents, as far as indenting they've got like some custom indentation stuff built into these Word documents. And then they've also got some automatic numbering built into these documents as well. And it can be a little bit weird to try to, let's say you've got section 107.2, and in the model code, it goes from 107.2 to 107.3, but in our amendment, we want to add a 107.2.1. Sometimes adding that in there gets weird with the auto formatting of some of these tables and lists that Word can generate. So knowing that you can have the challenge there, when I was working with it, I just canceled the auto format and typed in the numbering as I needed it, and it saved frustration of trying to figure out how to align with what ICC has drafted in their document. And when it comes to submitting this back to ICC, they'll take what we have and their editors will format it appropriately for us. Are there any other questions on what we got going on here? Concerns?
Justin,
comments?
Yeah, Steve Belzak here again. This is my very first rodeo, and did you kind of just run through the steps involved in what we're going to be doing, or is that just going to become apparent to us as we?
Oh yeah, are you talking like for the whole code adoption cycle?
I'm talking about like for an individual tag member, what do we, we're assigned a certain chapter. Okay, so what's going to happen next? Are we going to receive
Okay.
a copy of that chapter?
So-
Then what go ahead.
Yeah, so as you receive the chapter, the task is to, for existing amendments, you may choose to work the existing amendments first in the document and then go back and work significant changes or vice versa. When it comes to existing amendments, we're going to make sure that those amendments are included in the Word document. So the document you'll get won't have any of the Washington State amendments drafted into it yet. The task with existing amendments is to get them drafted into the Word document. And if they are super similar to the model code language, potentially recommend either keep the amendment, delete the amendment, or modify the amendment. So those are kind of the three options we're looking for the tag members to identify. So in a couple, I don't have any examples ready to point out in the document we were looking at earlier, but sometimes the grammar is just a little bit different in the Washington Amendment, and that's because we adopted it prior in the previous section, or I'm sorry, we adopted a 2024 code that wasn't 100% finalized at ICC yet, and we put that language into the 2021 code. And so sometimes the language is just a little bit different, and the job would be, is this difference in language beneficial to Washington? Does it have a regulatory change? And in your opinion, should it remain in the code or be modified?
I kind of get all that. I'm just saying, do you have like an example, a sample document we can refer to and say this is how it's done, something like that?
How about as a sample document, I'll include chapter 1, which is completed, and you can go back and reference that one and see kind of how everything is going on that one.
Well, that's great. Yeah, it's not, I don't have an issue doing doing the monitoring and making changes if needed. I have more of an issue with how do I do this in terms of when we've received something, where do we put comments, etc. How do we do the comments, that kind of thing.
I got you.
Yeah, just maybe, I don't know, maybe for new tag members, if we had just a simple, kind of not a spreadsheet necessarily, but just showing little sequencing of what is necessary to perform the function. I guess that's what I'm looking for. So, okay.
I think we can put that together. I don't have a guide document like that for everybody right now to show, but I can put that together and get that out with all the documents that we'll be sending out.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hopefully we can get that. So, here, Roger.
Oh, if you're, go ahead and finish. I've got another question.
Oh, I was just going to say, looking at what we got here, so this would be the sample document that I would send out, which is the completed chapter 1. With the document that I would hope to prepare to present with this one, we'll get some color coordination comments on there, some goals of what we are doing with these two reports here, and hopefully that would cover the what am I doing and how am I doing it question that we just fielded there.
Sounds good.
And Steve, I will add, I just think that I have not gone through the whole process either, but I have kind of seen the end product. I've only been on the council for 2 years, so the beginning of the tag process is new to me, but I think, as Todd said, once you start digging into this, you will kind of figure it out, and then Dustin would be there for any questions you might have. I think certainly my intent is that I will work together with Joshua, and I think there's one other structural engineer as well to kind of, as we mark up those chapters, we're doing it the same way, and so there'll be some outside communication.
Sure, appreciate that, Roger. Yeah, thank you.
Dustin, my other question is just, can you talked about this at the beginning, but now that I've volunteered for a certain amount of work, I'm an engineer. I always like to have a deadline. Can you remind us all again, what's the work? When are you wanting us to have these chapters? A document similar to what you're showing there for chapter 1. When are you wanting us to have these the chapters updated?
Ideally with some levity yesterday, but in reality, so the council meeting's on the 24th of May. And so that's our absolute deadline, 7 days before that. That's when we have to post these documents to meet the requirements so that everybody has time to digest them and so that we can talk about them at the council meeting. So that it's the 16th today and the 24th, so we're just a little over a month away. And I'm hoping that we can meet a couple times to digest the report as a tag. So ideally, I would like to have some of these start coming in about a week, and then maybe the goal be to have all of them back by the end of April. Now, this is me thinking about how we can have some meetings to recommend the report. I would also ask, right now, does that sound like a time frame that we can meet? I don't want to put off the digestion of the whole report for the tag until last minute and then be rushing through that. But at some point we're kind of rushing everything that we're working for on this first step. It is my hope and intent that after we can do these reports during the proposal cycle, that we will have a little bit more of breathing room on that one and won't be so far on our back heel moving forward beyond the May 24th meeting. So I guess my ask is let me pull up a calendar here. I don't have it open anymore. So let's say by May 3rd, which is a Friday, it would be the ask to have these the work that we're asking for you here right now to be done. And then in the interim, as these start coming in, we'll start having some tag meetings, probably in the end of April and first full week of May to finalize the reports to recommend to the council. And then we're looking at final recommendation to the council by the 17th of May is when we want to have the reports done and say these are ready for the council to be done. So I'm hoping that in about 4 meetings or so, we can go over both the building code and the existing building code and say with some confidence that we are these are the existing amendments, these are significant changes and our recommendations on those.
And we will need at least 1 meeting for the standing committee, building, fire, residential and committee, which is typically a week before the council meeting. However, if we are in a short time, we can have it closer to the council meeting. So there is some room there. And then the schedule that we developed and that was approved by the council, we knew that, we got busy with lawsuits, a bunch of them, and changing the effective dates and those kind of things. So we got the model codes kind of late. So the technical advisory groups were established kind of late. So we have very limited time for these reports, but at the same time, it's better if we have a little bit more time for the real amendments, and then we can reevaluate the reports again if it's needed. So if we miss May of 24, the world is not going to end, but at the same time will be difficult to staff to run 2 sets of meeting because we'll get like 6 months overlap with group 1 and group 2 codes. So that's why we're rushing it a little bit right now.
I think the most helpful thing and to kind of build confidence in everyone is I would recommend maybe having a weekly meeting right at the beginning here so that people can take a chunk into it that they're comfortable with and then learn from each other. You know, let's say if we were to do this again next week, we prioritize, you know, some things and learn and then say, okay, I get how the process is working and oh wait, I have too much work. Let's balance this out a little bit. I think if we do that over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll all feel pretty comfortable that we can get a pretty significant report done in May.
Yep. And I also want to toss out there, I'm looking to have another one of these tag meetings early next week, so that folks who are not here today and are in Florida, we can, and so 2 goals at the next tag meeting: update on where we're at with our reports drafting, and then setting a schedule for the tag meetings. And so Todd, it sounds like you have some idea for what the frequency should be on that, and I think that at least weekly is good. I don't know if all the volunteers have bandwidth to have maybe more than 1 weekly meeting, not necessarily every week, but I'd like to maybe explore that, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a extended meeting, maybe an hour just to come in and touch base and digest some things. But I think that an extra meeting a week might be relevant as we are trying to complete the work.
Yeah, and especially, and that could also be broken out in subgroups if we need to. So I think that's my recommendation for next week. Everyone take a chunk out of your section, get a feel for it, and let's meet Tuesday, and then we can. Are you thinking Tuesday next week, Dustin, or whenever you want to schedule this?
That's kind of what I had in mind.
Okay.
And I was gonna touch base with you and Roger on
Okay.
that to see what the availability is. And we could do afternoons, we could do mornings, and I guess as an ask for next week to talk about that, everybody maybe just look at the schedules and what you have going on, and maybe we can decide on a day of the week that works best for everybody. And we can kind of deliberate that at the next meeting, and so we can set a schedule.
Okay.
All righty. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, I'm not seeing any hands, and so I'll just touch base once more. Come tomorrow morning, you can expect to get the assigned code chapters. You can expect to get contact list for staff and tags. You're going to get a sample document of kind of what the work here on the Word document looks like. I'll include a sample document also of the spreadsheet that we're working on and what that would look like, and then also a target process rundown on color specifications on what we're doing, so we're all putting together the same product, and kind of the goals of each report and what that looks like. And so we'll get that out to you guys first thing in the morning, and I guess I'm excited to embark on the work, and also a little bit I don't want to say, I have a little trepidation, I guess. I'm nervous about it, but I feel like I work well under pressure, and so I hope everybody else works well under pressure. And call me anytime with questions, comments, or concerns, and if something's not working, we can work to make it better. And I think that we have a good group starting off here. I appreciate everybody showing up today and having the input that we did have today.
And thank you, Dustin, Stoyan, and team for your preparation in a well-organized meeting. So thank you.
Dustin is really good with it. He just doesn't know it yet. So he'll make it.
It's already obvious. Glad to have you on board.
Steve Belzak here. Wanted to thank you guys as well. I do have a brief question though, Justin. And we got our onboarding training checklist last week or this week. And I noticed we're not able to put in the date completed. It's not a fillable area.
Section on that form.
Yeah, correct. So I don't know if that's something you do, or should we just put it in ourselves and turn it in later? I don't know how you want to manage that. But.
Let me make a quick note of that, and we may send out a new form with the fillable field, or we could just, if we get a signature on it with the date of receipt, we can just make note of that on there.
Okay.
But I'll have a quick conversation with some folks, and then I'll let everybody know on that one.
Very good. Thank you.
Awesome. Anything else? All right, then I'll turn it over to Todd to do what he does best and adjourn us.
That's it. That's it. Thank you. We're adjourned.
All right, thank you guys, and have a
Thank you,
wonderful
everybody.
day, and a good
Thank you,
weekend,
everyone.
and maybe we'll
Thank
see
you.
some of you at the council meeting Friday.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Stop the recording.